Okay, this video is showing you how to use Nature Manufacturers RAM, stands for River Auto Material. This is the version pre 2018.3, so there's something out there called River Auto Material 2019, I believe. That's not the one you want. You want this older version. The newer one's not going to work with our terrains. We're basically using this RAM spline to smooth things. I don't have the most hilly course here, but I'm going to show you at least the idea behind this. This will work great on hilly courses to smoothing out paths. I think this is something that everybody should do before they export their course to Blender. You're going to want to flatten tees. You're going to want to flatten cart paths. You're going to want to smooth out your bunkers. You're going to want to dig out your water areas. And RAM is awesome for dealing with the paths in the water. It really reduces your work time. This could be, you could get your whole course smoothed out in less than a day's time, just using RAM to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So once you've loaded it, go to Game Object, 3D Object, and create a river spline. Now you're going to use Control left click to put out your points. When this loads, it creates a RAM spline in the hierarchy. You can rename this to whatever you want, and then just hit enter there. And then you Control left mouse to lay down your points. Now you're able to adjust the points so it doesn't have to be just perfect right away. And I'm just going to stop this short here just to show you the idea. Now, you can move your points like I said, but you want to go to this tool over here on the left, this gizmo, the move tool, and then you can move these points however you like. And remember, we're just smoothing. We're not using this to create a path, but you could. So I'm not going to be perfectly accurate with this. Now, right now you can see it's got some clipping along it. It's not, because some of it's underneath the terrain and some of it's above the terrain. If you want to be able to see the road a little better, you can look at this spline profile and you can change it to road profile so you can just see the road. Now, I've changed my mesh curve, my base mesh curve a little bit. This is what comes in, I think, as default. And you can see here that gives an edge to it. If you were using this on the terrain as a path, I would recommend just using this here because it's going to prevent balls from going underneath it. Now, if you didn't want to do any sort of topology to this or adjusting the terrain, you just click this snap button. That snaps this to the terrain, but you can see then it's taking this slope. You can imagine if this is more of a hilly course and you don't have this adjusted properly, it's just going to be unrealistically sloped down. It's just kind of some of the limitations of the LiDAR. Now, let me drop something in here that I can just zoom in on because I've got a little bit of clipping going on there. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to dig and smooth out everything along this path. What that's going to do is basically maintain our Y dimensions, which is the height of all of our points. So let me pick this spline back and come to the basic. You can see all of our points here. Let me just go to shaded. It's probably better for you to see it in shaded wireframe view. Now, what it's going to do, it's going to level it though in the XZ dimension. So if we unsnap this, you can see this is horizontally like flat straight across here. And so for the most part, what this is going to do is just going to level out some of this. And then we're going to get some edges that we just have to buff a little bit. So after you've got this traced out, you go to terrain and then you can carve. And so on some of this, you're going to have to do some adjusting, but this is meters out. So it smooths 5 meters out. That may be too far for you. Sometimes the smooth distance, so you may not want it to do that far out. So something like smooth distance 3 and then 5 is the strength of the smooth there in terms of how sharply it's going to blend things off. So I've reduced this a little bit. It'll be more critical if you're like near a green and you don't want to significantly carve out that green. So you may want to go bigger or smaller with this. One point of advice: on every hole after you've completed it, save out your terrain so that you could always reset back, because you can Control Z some of your changes. That may crash occasionally. Just make sure you've saved your terrain as you're doing some of these changes. So now we're going to go ahead and we can look. Let me see if I can see it. You could look, at how far out this is going to carve this. So you can see this is the terrain smooth distance. And then I don't think that's going to change it that much, but let's see if we can zoom in on that and see what's happening there. And so this is how much it's going to smooth it. So can you see the bump up there versus it kind of being just flat? So tweak that to your liking, kind of bevel that out a little further. So I like how that's going to be. And then we can go ahead and tell it to carve the terrain to that shape. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide this so that we can kind of see what's happened. Usually what I'll do is, so you can see over here where we've got a steep, it leveled this out, but then maybe I don't like that little bit that it's got there. So I'll come back over this. So I pick the terrain here and so I just type in terrain. And then you can come back with your smoothing brush here. And then, you know, whatever, the higher the setting, the more aggressive it's going to be. So you can see here how quickly it's going to smooth that out, Control Z. If you just want to buff the edges, you know, you might be down in here and use this sort of soft brush. And then you can see that's kind of gently polishing it. So I kind of like that. Just depends on how fiddly you want to be. And so I'm middle mouse to grab, and then I'm mouse wheeling around here. And then sometimes I'm WASDing and kind of just moving around. And it's just, unfortunately, you know, I don't have my mouse keys up right now, but this is right mouse. This is middle mouse. This is mouse wheel. And then sometimes I'm WASD. And if I hit shift, I go faster. So that's, unfortunately, that's my brain is just, you know, your brain will get tuned into it, just like playing video games or whatever it may be. So now if we were to use this path, so let's bring it back and say you're using this path and not doing the Inkscape. Now you would want to go back to the basic tab and then do snap, you know, the snap on snap. So now it's snapping to your new changes there. And then we can take off and go back to shaded view. So that looks nice, obviously, except for the fact that it's a funky road. You know, but that's something you got to change the UV tiling or something there. Cool.